exist. And then, through the designation, through strategic planning, attract the companies that are manufacturing the wind turbines, the solar panels, and also companies that are doing research and development, converting things like algae into renewable biofuel. Those are the new jobs. These are the jobs that offer this promise so that we can be competitive here in the United States and look for long-term prosperity.
The city of Chicago touted the conversion of the roof that they have on City Hall to plants and
we have a green roof.
Right. And Chicago is also part of the Cool Cities consortium. Why don't you describe to our viewers what the Cool Cities program is?
It's a consortium of municipalities that are dedicated basically in developing plans for reducing our carbon footprint. The city of Chicago is a leader in the area. As you know, we just published a roadmap of sorts, actually a baseline analysis of where we are at as a community in terms of the carbon emissions that we are producing in our city. And we're talking about greenhouse gases that are contributing to global warming.
And what are some of the practical ways of accomplishing this task?
Well, we discovered that the biggest driver, the biggest factor, contributor to the carbon emissions was buildings. More than 70% of our carbon emissions can be related to buildings. Then roughly a little bit more than 20%.
And so energy audits, energy
audits,
conservation, making these homes,
right.
sealing the envelope better.
Sealing the envelope.
There's also some things, interesting things you can do about roofs, right?
But also new construction. The new construction is critical. If we're going to be building new, let's be building smarter. Let's change the paradigm. You know, a lot of folks, some folks are saying, well, you know, the critics are saying, well, it's going to be too expensive. You know, our point should be, we can't afford.
Right.
We can't afford.
It's too expensive not to do it.
Not to do it.
Right.
You know, and I think that's the way that's the proper perspective, and that it's not about government providing or creating a new mandate.
Right.
And it's not about, you know, we have to really value things differently. I think, you know, that's part of the reason why we're in this mess to begin with. But I think we can develop a new paradigm. And, you know, we hear just today the Congress, the House of Representatives just approved the more than $800 billion for this economic stimulus package. Now it has to go before the Senate. And I'm sure there's going to be a fight there. It looks like it's voting along partisan lines. But we have a unique opportunity to leverage these resources to create a new economy, one where it can help us get out of this recession now, but also develop a long-term strategic plan.
Reduce our reliance on foreign oil.
You got it.
Reduce the amount of money that we have to expend on defense to protect the oil lanes.
Yeah.
And we can save all of that money and reinvest it in our new energy grid to transport electricity from North Dakota and South Dakota, where we're going to have wind farms for the east and Chicago and
that's right.
et cetera.
And listen, we have no choice. I mean, look at the big three automakers. You know, many believe that one of the reasons they're in the weak position that they're in right now is because of this lack of foresight.
I'm one of them. I always bought American.
And lack of commitment to really look at how to improve the technology and how these cars run.
I looked at American cars for 3 or 4 months when I needed to buy a new car, and I couldn't find one that fit the gas mileage that I wanted. I ended up having to buy a Prius, and I never wanted to buy a foreign car.
And there's no reason.
The Chevy Volt better be
There's
affordable.
no reason, and we have, the American worker is the best worker.
Yep, the most creative,
the most creative,
productive,
the hardest working.
Yep.
So we can do it here.
Well, we also want to reduce some of their health care costs, because that's another thing that hurts some of our auto manufacturers.
Well, but again, you know, that also I think is connected to the quality of life.
Right.
That's why we do have to be paying attention to the quality of air, quality of water, quality of the, you know, where we're growing our food. So these are, you know, we can go on and on with all these issues, But
well, in the first ward, you have a unique way of taking a look at developments. You have an actual committee of residents that are involved in the process, right?
We have various committees.
How many different committees, and do each one of them handle a different thing? Is one residential, one commercial, one industrial?
We have a number of neighborhood groups that we work with, and we encourage these groups to form their own subcommittees that deal with development issues. So as things come up in the community, or when we look at strategic planning or development, we consult with these groups and encourage them to really get involved in a process where they can help shape and influence and direct the development that's going to be taking place in their community, and to think long term.
You know, a lot of times you'll hear, if you're in government, something called a NIMBY, not in my backyard. How is it that you have these committees structured in a way where you don't have certain people saying, well, yeah, that'd be a great development, but I don't want it near my house? How do you balance that? How do you make these committees work?
Well, you'll always face, those types of challenges, but I think the best way to overcome that is by really empowering people and having the development really come from a source where the community's engaged in the planning.
Is that what hurt the alderman where Scott Wagasback took over? Where was there lack of committees and an understanding, or is that fair of me to ask?
No, I mean, frankly speaking, I'm not really informed in terms of what exactly the dynamics were in that community.
Okay.
I think Scott would be the best person to talk to about that. But he's done a good job. Him and I share. We're neighbors, and we work on a variety of issues.
You mentioned earlier water resources. Chicago is really well suited for the future, where water looks to be the new gold of 15 or 20 years from now, when water sources are going to become extremely valuable.
Well, we should never take anything for granted.
What are some of the things that Chicago can do to preserve that and and conserve our energy?
Well, it's not just going to be
resources.
It's not just going to be the city of Chicago. I mean, we're going to have to work with the other municipalities in the other states, and it shouldn't just be viewed as Lake Michigan, but you have also the rest of the Great Lakes and
Great Lakes Consortium.
That's right.
Right.
And you have these very valuable bodies of fresh water.
Now, there was a treaty that was established between the Great Lakes Consortium and Canada, and I apologize if I'm asking you a question that you don't know. Is that thing been passed by the Senate, or are we still waiting for them to approve that treaty?
I'm not very, I'm not, at this point, I'm not.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. But let me highlight an example of why this is so important, which you're referencing. And it's not just a treaty with foreign countries that we're talking about, but really also an understanding, with our neighboring states. Not too long ago, British Petroleum wanted to dump some mercury from one of their plants in Indiana.
They wanted to expand their
That's right. They wanted to expand, and they were going to be permitted to discharge some mercury. They had applied for a permit.
And the crude was coming from Canada, of all places, right?
That's the irony. But the state EPA for the state of Indiana had preliminarily permitted. And the federal EPA was basically going to rubber stamp that approval, and it wasn't, frankly, until a strong grassroots momentum in opposition to that effort that we were able to get these agencies to reverse course. But that was a scary moment.
Yeah.
That was a scary moment, and it's not over, because now you're still dealing also with air quality. And so there are a lot of issues. And again, these are all related to the environment. And we should not be in the business, government should not be we don't want to hurt companies like BP, British Petroleum.
Right.
I think
we just want them to naturally convert to passive energy sources and cleaner ways of dealing with it.
Absolutely.
Because BP does have a pretty wide variety of energy sources. They are expanding into passive energy sources, so we just want them to do a little bit faster.
Look at Boone Pickens.
Right.
Right. Oil magnet turn, green wind.
Yeah, he invested a lot of money into those windmills that produce.
But I think he put his money